Since most of my bigger video projects are likely going to take until next year, I decided to get a quick enough holiday special video done again here at the end of the year. Last year I made a comparison review on the comic book source material adapted into that one The New Batman Adventures episode, and since I realized that I have this comic in my bookshelf, I thought, why not make a video about this? Batman Noël, written and drawn by Lee Bermejo in 2011, is yet another retelling of A Christmas Carol by Charles Dickens, which, because it was originally published back in 1843, makes it public domain just like Dracula, Sherlock Holmes, and the original versions of Winnie the Pooh and Mickey Mouse. That is why it has not only been adapted so many times that the list of those adaptations has its own Wikipedia page, but has also been retold with characters from separate franchises being made to go through similar character arc as Ebenezer Scrooge, a bitter old businessman not in the holiday spirit in late December, and passively making it everyone else's problem if they dare to bother him with Christmas.
Humbug.
Or have Ebenezer Scrooge coexist with his supporting cast being played by other characters from franchises that came after, like with the Muppets. But in Batman Noël's case, we have Batman himself playing the role of Ebenezer Scrooge in the way of that former example, aka having one night of working make Batman go through Scrooge's character arc. In case you happen to be too young to have never read A Christmas Carol, like I have because I had to write a book report about it in high school before I got diagnosed with dyslexia, or seen any of these adaptations and retellings that are still being made today, then you are most likely going to be learning how the story goes through with the comic story commentary, during which I will also be bringing up that original story for comparison. And that is what makes this video another one of my usual comparison reviews.
My name is Charles Dickens. Welcome to the Christmas Carol.
Batman Noël starts with a narration from Bob Cratchit, the only one of two characters who have been reimagined from the Christmas Carol, where he was the only employer working as a bookkeeper for Scrooge, to exist in this version of the DC universe as a hired courier/runner working for the Joker. That is why Batman is shown apprehending Bob in this opening scene. And since Batman is supposed to stand in for Scrooge, he is framed in this context as Bob's actual employer, by first confronting Bob for having worked for the Joker in delivering who knows what, and passive-aggressively coercing Bob into being live bait to help Batman in catching the Joker, for when he will eventually come for Bob's failure to deliver this money that got scattered into the winds when Batman caught him. Batman so lets Bob go with a tracker on him and wait for that to happen, similar to how Scrooge gave Bob Cratchit the December 25th as a day off if he shows up an hour early to work for the next day, and then checks the place Bob left his package delivery for the Joker, only to learn that the Joker is not there. In transitioning, we are shown how Bob gets to his home, where his son Tim, based on Tiny Tim also from Christmas Carol, has made a very poor Christmas tree with as much love as an innocent child could make. Bob, being scared out of his mind as well as stressed out, unintentionally crashes his son's childlike pride on the tree before realizing what he did, and in talking about what the tree is decorated with gets bothered when Tim mentions having tried to find a Batman ornament to put on it, but otherwise knows better than making his son even more crushed by telling how Batman almost caught him as a bad guy. The narration next moves in comparing Batman to Scrooge as a rich, lonely man obsessed with his work to the Batcave, where Bruce is presented working while sick with a cold and justifying his use as Bob as live bait to catch the Joker to Alfred as necessary due to the circumstances Bob created himself by abandoning the money he was supposed to deliver to the Joker. Bruce's dialogue, in disregarding Tim losing his father if he were to be arrested for having worked for the Joker, then echoes Scrooge's own dialogue from the Christmas Carol when he refuses to give donations to help the poor and orphans.
Are there no prisons, no poorhouses?
When Alfred then leaves to prepare Bruce some dinner and medication, the narration compares Batman's earlier years when working with a Robin, whom I'm going to assume being Jason Todd because this would not make sense with Dick Grayson, to Scrooge having in the past worked with his also now deceased business partner Jacob Marley. Jason Todd being dead at this point of Batman's career timeline makes sense with the attitude Bruce is established to have, and just like Jacob Marley with Scrooge, Jason's dead stuck status is used to make Bruce hallucinate him appearing as a ghost, warning him about 3 spirits coming to visit him during the night. Or rather that Bruce needs to ease up his attitude that he has adapted recently as Batman and change for the better before his self-destructive behavior hurts the people around him and or gets him killed. Since Bruce is only playing the part of Scrooge but not Scrooge himself, he does not go to sleep to wait for any spirits to come visit him. Instead, he goes to meet Commissioner Gordon as Batman and is passed a message from Catwoman, who claims to have information about the Joker. Batman has clearly ignored the appearance of Jason's ghost as a hallucination brought by his illness, which Gordon notices while delivering the news, which Batman already deduces to be a waste of time. Later, when he finds Catwoman having done what she does best, aka having stolen loot that Batman is in no mood to pay attention to, in rather getting what information she has on the Joker's whereabouts. Shockingly, Catwoman reveals that she had lied to Gordon about knowing anything to lure Batman to come spend Christmas with her, probably, but as Batman is focused on actively hunting the Joker down with Bob as his live bait, he turns away and blames Catwoman for having wasted his time, and if someone, Bob and or his son, dies that night, he will hold her responsible. And since Batman does not admit or mention that fact, Selina responds shocked at how out of character it is for him to ignore her stealing. When she next compares their song and dance to a shared game, Batman coughs out that he has never enjoyed playing games with the sick people he fights, which Selina takes as an insult in being compared to Batman's other enemies, and angers him enough to start chasing her across the rooftops. As the chase happens, the narration compares this to Scrooge being visited by the first of the 3 spirits, with Catwoman representing both the ghost of Christmas past as well as Scrooge's lost love. Okay, fun fact about my writing process for this video. When I reached this point, it dawned on to me that I did not remember the name of Scrooge's love interest from his youth, and decided to watch one of those many adaptations to refresh my memory. Also because I knew I needed footage to edit for the visual references for the Christmas Carol. I decided to go with the Muppets version, mostly because it has Michael Caine playing Scrooge, which works as a good Batman connection since he also played Alfred in Christopher Nolan's The Dark Knight trilogy. And the version of the Muppets Christmas Carol I ended up watching online was the old VHS version, which included the When Love Is Gone song sang by both Michael Caine as Scrooge and Meredith Brown as Belle, who left him in the past in seeing Scrooge choose money and career over a married life with her. Batman clearly does not look at Catwoman in that way since she is still present in his life, but in representing the ghost of Christmas past, Catwoman does her job as the narration suggests. At least there is nothing suggesting that Batman is not remembering his career up to this point like the 1960s show as Adam West's Batman, who at least according to my recollection never fought Scarecrow. Anyway, the chase is cut short when Batman fails to acknowledge a broken gargoyle when jumping over a gap between buildings, and Catwoman, despite having what resembles worry on her face, decides to go home as Batman seems to fall down to Park Row on the street level, aka to Crime Alley where his parents died, so we can get yet another reminder of Batman's origin story. There the Ghost of Christmas Present arrives in the form of Superman, whom the narration describes similarly being large and colorful as Superman is expected to be, and Lee Permejo's art with Barbara Giardo's coloring makes him glow festively in the monotone Gotham City's background. In the context of the story itself, Superman claims to be here because he heard Batman coughing all the way to Metropolis, but didn't clearly arrive fast enough to stop him from falling from the rooftops. Superman then plays his part as the Ghost of Christmas Present by offering to fly too proud to admit being sick Batman to where he parked the Batmobile so he can go home and rest to get better, to which Batman agrees on the condition of going to check if the Joker has gone to Bob's house. He has not, but seeing and hearing how Batman is using Bob as a lure to catch the Joker, Superman raises questions on what will happen to Bob and his son afterwards, to which Batman answers by once again echoing Scrooge's words about Bob's death decreasing the
and decrease the surplus population,
while not caring about Tim's future, which Scrooge in contrast does in most versions of A Christmas Carol.
Spirit? Tell me if Tiny Tim will live.
Even for Batman at this point of his career timeline, aka after Jason Todd died, this is clearly too much out of character for him, so Superman decides to properly play his role as the Ghost of Christmas Present. First, by taking Batman to fly across Gotham to make him see the people he is protecting from his perspective, and then taking Batman to overhear a conversation Commissioner Gordon has with one of his officers visiting him and his wife. I assume that is supposed to be Sarah Essen for Christmas. Like how the Ghost of Christmas Present took Scrooge to see his nephew Fred friendly make fun of him at his family's Christmas dinner, and Bob Cratchit make a toast for Scrooge's health at his own, Batman overhears Commissioner Gordon both defend their working relationship when the officer calls Batman a necessary evil, but does admit having been haunted about what if Batman were to go too far in his war on crime, while Commissioner Gordon also believes himself to be what keeps Batman on the straight and narrow. That is all Batman chooses to eavesdrop before telling Superman to take him to the Batmobile, and thinks about what he heard on the way. At the Batmobile, Superman leaves Batman with the encouragement to drink lots of fluids and call Alfred to come pick him up, but Batman says that he can have the Batmobile drive on the autopilot. Superman then either leaves as quickly as the Ghost of Christmas Present left Scrooge, or Batman was so slow in approaching the Batmobile that Superman was already too far to hear it explode from having been booby-trapped. So, Batman is caught off guard as the Ghost of Christmas Yet to Come is represented by the Joker, who next plays his part in dragging Batman to the cemetery without uttering a word to him, just like with Scrooge. The Joker, however, skips right to the part where he dumps Batman into an open grave and leaves to do what he plans to do, so the near-death experience Batman has buried alive manifests those visions of the future he would leave behind. First, we get to see Tim Cratchit having grown up as a hardened vigilante carrying a spiked baseball bat and repeating Batman's views when fighting looters, the same way how the Ghost of Christmas Present did to Scrooge when it came to dealing with ignorance and want, who are likely represented by all the looters in the burning Gotham, as well as this representation of the Joker who kills Tim. Next, we see Commissioner Gordon punished for having allowed Batman to roam free, now branded posthumously as a dangerous criminal, while the Wayne fortune is divided and auctioned away as Alfred can only watch leaving the Wayne Manor. The same way how Scrooge was shown his belongings being grave robbed after his death and being sold off to a fence. This realization of what kind of impact his attitude and methods are going to leave behind then gives Batman the strength to, even when sick, dig his way out of the grave. I guess the ground had not frozen too much. Whereas Scrooge, waking up on the morning after being visited by the three spirits, went right into correcting his ways, Batman charges, with some delays, to Bob's apartment where the Joker has already forged his way into, and made a show out of his break in to traumatize Tim, while Bob has desperately tried and failed to defend them both. Batman then arrives right on time to disarm the Joker and get him off Bob, who grabs the gun and is about to fulfill the Joker's greatest wish in granting him the death he has longed for ever since his Killing Joke origin happened. But Batman, unaware of the punchline to that joke, and having grown from his recent experiences like Scrooge did, is able to talk Bob out of becoming a sin-eater for the Joker, and to not become a murderer in the eyes of his son. So, the Joker's suffering in continuing his life as it is gets extended as he is arrested and taken back to Arkham, and Bruce can finally rest in getting the best medicine to his cold from sleeping it off. Before having gone to sleep, in what must be an uncomfortable sitting position in front of the Batcomputer, Bruce did what Scrooge did after he woke up in the aftermath of the Ghost of Christmas Yet to Come's visit, and sent people to go fix up Bob's and Tim's apartment while also providing them a proper Christmas tree, as well as offering Bob an opportunity to come work for him at the Wayne Enterprises with all the benefits included. So, ending the story as it is revealed to be told by Bob as an employee of Bruce Wayne, similar as the original Bob was of Scrooge's, and having gotten that raised salary that Scrooge gave to Bob at the end of Christmas Carol during the hiring process, to Tim, who has just as much life in him as his original tiny namesake.
God bless us.
God bless us, everyone.
For yet another adaptation / retelling of the Christmas Carol, Batman Noël manages to hit most of the necessary beats to be put on the list with the rest of them, and substitutes surprisingly well the three spirits and the ghost of Jacob Marley within the limits of the DC universe. Having covered a death in the family in the past, however, I must criticize the drawbacks of having the story set after it and in between before a lonely place of dying, although a few of them could be forgiven with the publication date being set close to the launch of the New 52 in 2011. But Batman and Superman both wearing underwear on the outside kind of makes it moot. Catwoman wearing her Darwin Cook designed costume at this point of Batman's career timeline is another acronym too, especially when she was still wearing this flashback costume around this time. But the Joker running around supposedly not long after Jason Todd's death feels too early, when acknowledging that he was smart enough to lay low until Tim Drake had become the third Robin. Maybe the Joker really is suicidal and was trying his luck in getting someone random like Bob to kill him, while also getting back at Batman for the role he played in his creation. Okay, and with that out of the way, as I brought up most of those comparative elements during the story commentary, the comic retells the Christmas Carol as competently as those other adaptations before it, and outside of reusing Bob Cratchit and Tiny Tim as original characters, it manages to assign a role for most of Batman's supporting cast and Superman, while Alfred is left to just being there. One strange role assignment is with Commissioner Gordon, whom I assume to be representing either the charity workers that Scrooge initially refused to give anything, or Scrooge's nephew Fred, in seeing how Superman as the ghost of Christmas present flew Batman to see how he was celebrating Christmas and talking about Batman behind his back. With Jason Todd being all but confirmed to be the dead Robin playing the role of Jacob Marley, using Dick Grayson in the story at all as nephew Fred would have required Superman to fly all the way to the at the time current Teen Titans Tower in San Francisco, California, aka to the other side of the United States at the West Coast. But ultimately, Batman Noël mostly focused on the main theme that A Christmas Carol has been held on to since its publication in 1843, the belief that people can change, and using it as one of the necessary boosts to help Batman recover from the dark place he was after Jason Todd died. It might not be the same big change that made Scrooge turn his life around while he's still good in his old age, but it was enough to make Batman learn a similar enough lesson not to regress himself into the dark anti-hero vigilante that no one would be sad to mourn when he is gone. Compare back to the flashback showing those days when he was still appreciated, or how he remembered being appreciated by the people of Gotham, which portrayed him resembling Adam West's Batman, and make Bruce reclaim the way he carried himself back then. A very good Christmas story then, which makes me wonder why it has not been given an adaptation in animated form, and instead DC and Warner Bros. Have been pushing out these. Then when I look at Lee Bermejo's art style, I think it would be more fit for a live-action adaptation, which would probably cost too much to make. Or because Batman's live-action movie and TV rights are such a legal mess that adapting something small like this would require way too much to even get pitched. But I want to end this video on a happier note and not date it by mentioning who runs DC and Warner Bros. These days. So I'm now going to wish you all happy holidays and good rest of December while waiting for the year to change. Besides celebrating it with my family like a normal person would, I will also be scripting the videos for next year, including a couple of Resident Evil videos before RE9 comes out, the 10th anniversary review on Batman v Superman Dawn of Justice the Ultimate Edition, something Pokemon related at some point, and more comparison reviews when I get done with Watchmen. And now to remind you how YouTube works. Like this video, comment about the things I brought up about Batman Noël and A Christmas Carol, share this video for more people to see, and subscribe for the videos I have coming out next year. Ding the bell to be alerted for when I'm doing gaming streams for a chance to chat with me. Merry holidays, and may your heart be your guiding key.